Across the surface of the Earth, mountains rise and valleys settle into quiet patterns shaped by time. These forms appear solid and permanent, yet they are part of a slow and ongoing story. Stone lifts, bends, wears down, and rearranges itself through patient natural processes that unfold over millions of years. In this story, nothing happens quickly, and nothing happens alone. Gravity, heat, water, and pressure work together, shaping the land in steady, almost silent ways. Mountains are not simply tall places. They are records of movement within the planet, where layers of rock have been folded, lifted, or cooled from deep molten sources. Valleys are not empty spaces, but gentle responses to erosion, where water and ice have traced their paths again and again. Each ridge, slope, and basin reflects balance rather than force, showing how the Earth adjusts itself over long periods of time. Geological formations do not announce their presence. They reveal themselves slowly, through texture, color, and form. A smooth canyon wall, a jagged peak, or a wide, quiet plain each carries evidence of ancient conditions. These landscapes hold the memory of vanished seas, shifting plates, and changing climates, all preserved in stone. For those who observe quietly, mountains and valleys offer a sense of steadiness. They remind the mind that change does not require urgency. The land evolves through repetition and patience, guided by natural rhythms that continue whether they are noticed or not. In this gentle exploration, attention rests on gradual transformation, allowing the listener to settle into the calm pace of the Earth itself. Beneath the calm surface of the continents, the Earth's outer layer moves with remarkable patience. Large sections of crust, known as tectonic plates, drift slowly across the planet's mantle. Their motion is measured in small distances over long spans of time, often no more than the growth of a fingernail in a year. Yet over millions of years, this steady movement reshapes entire landscapes. When tectonic plates meet, the land responds quietly but profoundly. In some places, plates press gently against one another, causing rock layers to fold and rise. This gradual compression creates long chains of mountains, where stone once resting horizontally is slowly lifted skyward. These ranges do not rise suddenly. They form through repeated pressure, release, and adjustment, allowing the crust to find a new balance. In other regions, one plate slides beneath another, sinking into warmer layers below. As this happens, heat and pressure alter the descending rock, sometimes leading to volcanic activity nearby. Over time, volcanic material cools and hardens, adding new layers to the surface. These processes build mountains from below, stacking material carefully, layer by layer. Even as mountains grow, erosion begins its work. Wind, rain, and ice soften sharp edges as soon as they appear. Growth and wear happen together, creating landscapes that feel both powerful and gentle. The tallest peaks often contain traces of ancient seabeds, reminding observers that height and depth are part of the same long story. Through plate movement, the Earth demonstrates quiet persistence. Without urgency or sound, the planet rearranges itself, shaping mountains that stand as calm records of deep time and steady motion. Once mountains rise, the slow work of weathering begins. Weathering is the gentle process by which rock is broken down at the surface of the Earth. It does not rely on sudden force. Instead, it unfolds quietly through repeated exposure to air, water, temperature changes, and living organisms. Over long periods, even the hardest stone responds. Physical weathering occurs when rock is gradually fractured without changing its chemical makeup. In cold regions, water seeps into small cracks, freezes, and expands. This steady widening of tiny openings eventually loosens fragments of stone. In warmer places, repeated heating and cooling cause rock surfaces to expand and contract, slowly creating thin layers that peel away. Chemical weathering works more subtly. Rainwater absorbs small amounts of carbon dioxide from the air and soil, forming a weak acid. When this water flows over rock, it reacts with certain minerals, dissolving them bit by bit. Over time, solid stone becomes softer, its edges smoother, its structure altered. This process is especially gentle, often invisible in a single lifetime. Plants also take part in weathering. Roots seek moisture and nutrients, growing into small openings in rock. As they thicken, they apply steady pressure, slowly separating stone along natural lines. Lichens and mosses release mild acids that further soften exposed surfaces. Weathering does not remove material from the landscape. It prepares it. Broken and altered rock remains close to its origin, waiting for erosion to carry it elsewhere. This quiet preparation shapes the texture of mountains and hills, rounding sharp forms and creating soils that support life. Through weathering, the land becomes more welcoming and less rigid. It shows how persistence, not intensity, reshapes the Earth, allowing landscapes to evolve gently, one small change at a time. After weathering loosens stone at the surface, erosion begins its careful work. Erosion is the slow movement of rock and soil from one place to another, guided by natural forces. Water is the most patient of these forces. Drop by drop, stream by stream, it carries small fragments downhill, shaping valleys with steady precision. Rivers begin as narrow paths, often formed by melting snow or seasonal rain. As water flows, it gathers speed and weight, gently lifting sand and pebbles from the ground. These particles move along the riverbed, smoothing it as they travel. Over time, the channel deepens and widens, carving a valley that mirrors the path of the water itself. In mountainous regions, young rivers tend to cut sharply downward, forming steep-sided valleys. Their energy is focused on depth rather than width. As landscapes mature and slopes soften, rivers slow and begin to wander. They curve across flatter land, gradually shaping broad valleys with gentle sides and fertile soils. Erosion does not rush. A river may take thousands of years to shift its course by a small distance. Floods add occasional strength, but even these moments follow natural rhythms. Afterward, the water returns to its steady pace, continuing its quiet task. Wind also plays a role, especially in dry environments. Fine grains of sand are lifted and carried, polishing exposed rock and shaping smooth surfaces. Gravity assists in every setting, guiding material downward in landslides and slow soil movement. Together, these forces create balance. Mountains lose height as valleys gain depth, and the land settles into new forms. Erosion shows how movement can be gentle and continuous, reshaping the earth without urgency, guided by the calm persistence of natural flow. In colder regions of the world, ice becomes a powerful yet unhurried sculptor. Glaciers form where snow accumulates faster than it melts, layer upon layer compressing into dense ice. Over many seasons, this ice begins to move, flowing slowly downhill under its own weight. Though its motion is almost imperceptible, its influence on the land is profound. As a glacier advances, it carries with it fragments of rock collected from the mountainsides above. These stones become tools, gently grinding against the ground beneath the ice. Valleys that were once narrow and sharply cut by rivers are widened and deepened, taking on a smooth, rounded shape. The result is a U-shaped valley, broad and calm in appearance, reflecting the steady passage of ice. Glaciers do not only remove material, they also deposit it. When the ice melts, it releases the stones and soil it has carried, leaving behind ridges and gentle mounds known as moraines. These features mark the former edges of the glacier, quiet reminders of colder times. Fine sediments settle into plains and basins, creating fertile ground long after the ice has retreated. The presence of glaciers also reshapes entire regions. Lakes form where ice once blocked valleys or carved deep hollows. Smooth rock surfaces, polished by slow abrasion, reflect light softly, their markings revealing the direction of ancient movement. Though many glaciers today are smaller than in the past, their legacy remains written across the landscape. They demonstrate how cold, weight, and time combine to shape mountains and valleys with patience and care. Through glacial action, the earth reveals another way that gradual motion creates lasting, tranquil forms. Volcanoes create mountains through a process that begins deep below the surface. In certain regions, heat from the Earth's interior melts rock into a slow-moving liquid known as magma. This material gathers in chambers beneath the crust, resting quietly until pressure allows it to rise. When magma reaches the surface, it cools and hardens, gradually building new land. Volcanic mountains are formed layer by layer. Each eruption adds a thin covering of ash or solidified lava, spreading gently across the surrounding ground. Over long periods, these layers accumulate, shaping broad slopes or steep cones depending on the type of eruption and the fluidity of the lava. Some volcanoes grow wide and low, with smooth outlines, while others rise more sharply, defined by firmer material. Not all volcanic activity is dramatic. Many eruptions are calm, releasing lava that flows slowly, following the natural curves of the land. As it cools, the surface may crack into simple geometric patterns, creating textures that remain long after the heat has faded. These formations record moments of release rather than disruption. Volcanic regions often develop rich soils. Ash and fine rock particles break down over time, providing nutrients that support plant life. As vegetation settles in, the landscape softens, blending stone and living growth into a balanced environment. Even long after a volcano becomes quiet, its presence continues to shape the land. Hot springs, mineral deposits, and gently altered terrain reflect lingering warmth beneath the surface. Volcanic mountains remind the observer that creation can be gradual and calm, guided by internal rhythms that shape the earth without haste, forming landscapes that feel both steady and enduring. Across many landscapes, mountains and valleys reveal clear horizontal bands of color and texture. These layers belong to sedimentary rock, formed through slow accumulation rather than uplift or eruption. Sedimentary formations begin where loose material settles, often in calm environments such as seas, lakes, floodplains, or desert basins. Grain by grain, sand, silt, and organic matter gather at the bottom, resting quietly over long spans of time. As layers build, weight increases. Lower sediments are pressed together, gradually hardening into stone through a process called compaction. Minerals carried by water seep into small spaces between grains, acting as natural cement. This gentle bonding turns loose particles into solid rock without heat or intense pressure. The result is a layered structure that preserves a record of changing conditions. Each layer reflects a different moment. Fine mud may signal still water, while coarse sand suggests flowing currents. Color shifts reveal variations in mineral content or oxygen levels. Fossils sometimes appear within these layers, marking the presence of ancient life that settled and was preserved. These details allow sedimentary rock to serve as a quiet archive of environmental history. Over time, tectonic movement or erosion may expose these layers at the surface. Cliffs, canyon walls, and sloping hillsides display the stacked patterns clearly, inviting slow observation. The land does not hide its past, it reveals it openly, one band at a time. Sedimentary landscapes often feel gentle and approachable. Their shapes are defined by gradual weathering rather than sharp force. Through them, the earth shows how patience and repetition create structure, offering a calm reminder that even solid stone can form through steady accumulation and time. Some of the Earth's most quietly complex formations are created not at the surface, but deep within the crust. Metamorphic rocks form when existing stone is slowly changed by heat and pressure, without melting. This transformation happens gradually, often over millions of years, as rock is buried beneath mountains or drawn closer to warmer regions below. As pressure increases, minerals within the rock begin to realign. They stretch, flatten, or rearrange themselves into new patterns, creating textures that feel ordered and calm. Heat allows these changes to occur gently, encouraging minerals to grow larger or shift into more stable forms. The original rock remains present, but its structure becomes refined and strengthened. Metamorphic landscapes often display smooth, flowing lines or softly folded surfaces. Marble, once limestone, develops a uniform texture that reflects light evenly. Slate, formed from fine mudstone, splits into thin, even sheets. Gneiss shows subtle banding, with light and dark minerals separating into quiet, repeating patterns. These features develop without sudden movement, guided by steady internal conditions. When erosion eventually exposes metamorphic rock at the surface, it brings these deep processes into view. Hillsides, mountain cores, and valley walls reveal stone that has been shaped from within, rather than built or deposited. The land appears calm and solid, carrying the memory of pressure held and released slowly. Metamorphism reminds the observer that change does not always involve addition or removal. Sometimes it is a matter of adjustment, of becoming something new while remaining connected to what came before. Through warmth, weight, and time, the earth reshapes itself gently, forming landscapes that feel quiet, balanced, and enduring. Over long periods of time, the movement of water beneath the surface creates hidden landscapes within the earth. In regions where rock contains soluble minerals, especially limestone, groundwater slowly dissolves the stone along natural cracks and seams. This gentle process forms karst terrain, known for its quiet complexity and subtle surface features. As water seeps downward, it enlarges small openings, turning them into underground channels and chambers. These spaces grow gradually, shaped by the steady flow of mineral-rich water. Above ground, the land may appear calm and ordinary, yet beneath it lies a network of caves, passages, and hollows formed without noise or force. At the surface, karst regions often display rounded hills, shallow depressions, and sinkholes. These features develop as underground spaces slowly expand, and, in some cases, cause the ground above to settle. The process is slow and balanced, with the land adjusting itself naturally over time. Streams may disappear into the ground, flowing quietly through hidden routes before re-emerging elsewhere. Inside caves, mineral formations grow at an almost imperceptible pace. Droplets of water leave behind tiny traces of dissolved stone, building slender columns and smooth draperies over thousands of years. These shapes form in stillness, guided by gravity and evaporation rather than movement. Karst landscapes demonstrate how absence can shape form. By removing material carefully and patiently, water creates spaces that feel gentle and protected. These environments reflect the calm persistence of natural processes, reminding the listener that even the unseen parts of the earth follow slow rhythms, shaping valleys and formations with quiet consistency. Along the edges of continents, where land meets water, coastal landscapes form through a steady exchange between rock and sea. Waves arrive without urgency, repeating their motion day after day. Each movement carries energy shaped by wind, tides, and the gentle pull of the moon. Over long periods, this repetition reshapes cliffs, headlands, and coastal valleys. Rock at the shoreline is gradually worn down by the impact of water and the materials it carries. Sand and small stones move with the waves, brushing against the base of cliffs and smoothing surfaces through constant contact. Cracks and weaker layers become pathways for erosion, allowing the sea to work carefully into the land. Over time, steep faces retreat inland, leaving behind flatter platforms exposed at low tide. In some regions, valleys extend beneath the sea, carved when sea levels were lower. As oceans slowly rose, these valleys filled with water, becoming calm inlets and long, sheltered bays. Their shapes reflect earlier river paths, now softened by salt water and sediment. The transition from land to sea appears seamless, shaped by balance rather than force. Coastal erosion is not uniform. Harder rock resists change, standing quietly as headlands, while softer layers retreat more quickly, forming gentle curves along the shore. This contrast creates rhythmic patterns that feel ordered and natural. Beaches form where erosion and deposition reach equilibrium, with sand settling into smooth, even stretches. These coastal formations remind the observer that boundaries are flexible. Land and water adjust to one another gradually, guided by cycles that repeat without urgency. Through steady motion and time, coastlines evolve into calm, enduring landscapes shaped by patient interaction. In many regions, rivers and streams create gentle terraces and floodplains as they move through valleys. Unlike steep mountain channels, these calmer waterways meander, following subtle slopes and adjusting their course over centuries. The water shapes the land gradually, leaving behind a pattern of small ridges and flat stretches that reflect past flows. When a river floods, it spreads across the surrounding plain, carrying fine silt and small stones. As the water recedes, it deposits these materials evenly, building layers that raise the land slightly over time. Each flood adds a new, quiet contribution, forming natural steps or terraces along the valley sides. These terraces are soft markers of repeated processes, not sudden changes. Meandering rivers slowly shift their bends, eroding one bank while depositing material on the other. Over long periods, loops migrate and create oxbow lakes, crescent-shaped bodies of water separated from the main channel. These lakes remain calm, reflecting the sky and surrounding hills, serving as gentle reminders of the river's patient shaping power. Vegetation plays a part as well. Trees and grasses stabilize the soil, reducing sudden collapse and helping the land maintain subtle forms. Roots hold sediments in place, allowing terraces and floodplains to persist while continuing to change quietly under the influence of water. Valleys shaped by these slow river processes appear balanced and harmonious. The land seems to breathe, adjusting incrementally to water's steady rhythm. Observing these patterns invites calm attention, showing how continuous, gentle forces can form landscapes that feel stable, soft, and enduring. Desert landscapes shape the land through quiet persistence, where change unfolds under open skies and long spans of time. In these dry regions, water is limited, yet the land continues to adjust through gentle and repeated processes. Temperature shifts between day and night place steady stress on exposed rock. As surfaces warm and cool, they expand and contract, slowly loosening thin layers that settle at the base of slopes. Wind becomes a guiding force across desert valleys. Fine grains of sand and dust are lifted and carried in soft, continuous motion. As these particles move, they brush against rock surfaces, polishing them gradually and rounding sharp edges. Over many years, this steady contact sculpts stones into smooth forms and carves shallow patterns into exposed rock faces. Sand dunes form where moving air slows and releases its load. Grain by grain, dunes rise into gentle curves, shaped by prevailing winds that shift with the seasons. Though dunes appear active, their movement is calm and measured, following predictable rhythms. Valleys between them remain quiet and sheltered, collecting finer sediments that settle evenly. In rocky deserts, erosion reveals wide valleys bordered by mesas and buttes. These flat-topped formations remain where harder rock resists wear, while surrounding material lowers gradually. The result is a balanced landscape with broad horizons and simple lines that emphasize openness and stillness. Occasional rainfall also contributes quietly. Brief flows travel through dry channels, redistributing sediment before fading back into the ground. These rare events leave subtle traces rather than dramatic change. Desert valleys and formations reflect restraint and patience. Through wind, temperature, and time, the land evolves without urgency, shaped by repetition and calm continuity that brings quiet order to even the driest environments. Plateaus form where large areas of land are lifted evenly, creating elevated surfaces that stretch wide and level across the horizon. Unlike sharp mountain peaks, plateaus rise as broad blocks, their edges defined more by erosion than by uplift itself. Over long periods, rivers, wind, and weather gently carve into these raised regions, shaping valleys and escarpments along their margins. The surface of a plateau often appears calm and expansive. Layers of rock lie nearly flat, reflecting the conditions under which they were formed. As erosion works patiently, rivers cut downward through these layers, forming deep canyons that reveal the internal structure of the land. Each exposed band of stone records a different chapter of the Earth's history, preserved quietly within the plateau's walls. Along the edges, cliffs and steep slopes emerge where erosion has progressed further. These boundaries shift slowly inward, grain by grain, as material is carried away. The contrast between the flat summit and the sculpted edges creates a sense of balance, where stability and change exist together without urgency. Plateaus influence climate and life as well. Their elevation can alter wind patterns and rainfall, shaping the vegetation that settles across their surfaces. Grasslands, sparse forests, or open stone fields develop gradually, adapting to thin soils and wide skies. Human settlements, when present, tend to follow the same calm logic, using level ground and steady resources. Over time, plateaus may be reduced to smaller remnants, known as mesas and buttes, standing quietly above the surrounding land. These forms mark the gradual retreat of erosion, not a sudden loss. Plateaus remind the observer that height does not always imply sharpness. Through gentle uplift and persistent shaping, the Earth creates elevated landscapes that feel open, steady, and quietly enduring. Some valleys and geological formations are shaped by the slow movement of the Earth's crust pulling apart rather than pressing together. In these regions, known as rift zones, the land stretches gently over long periods of time. As the crust thins, it settles downward, forming elongated valleys bordered by higher ground on either side. This process occurs gradually, guided by steady internal forces rather than sudden shifts. Rift valleys are often wide and calm in appearance. Their floors may lie far below the surrounding plateaus, creating long corridors that follow the direction of crustal movement. Along the edges, faults mark places where the land has adjusted incrementally, stepping down in subtle layers. These features remain stable for long spans, changing only as erosion slowly softens their outlines. Volcanic activity sometimes accompanies rifting, adding new layers of rock to the valley floor. Lava flows spread evenly, cooling into smooth surfaces that later crack and weather gently. Over time, sediments carried by wind and water settle into the low areas, forming flat plains and shallow basins that collect moisture and life. Lakes frequently develop within rift valleys, filling depressions created by gradual sinking. Their shores shift quietly as water levels respond to climate and erosion. These bodies of water reflect the surrounding slopes, reinforcing the sense of balance within the landscape. Vegetation adapts slowly to the conditions of rift valleys. Grasses, shrubs, and trees establish themselves according to soil depth and water availability, forming patterns that echo the valley's shape. Human communities, when present, often follow these same natural lines, settling along water and level ground. Rift valleys illustrate how separation can create form. Through steady stretching and patient adjustment, the Earth produces long, tranquil landscapes shaped by openness, continuity, and time. Over vast spans of time, the combined action of many geological processes brings landscapes into a state of gentle balance. Mountains rise, valleys deepen, and plains spread outward, all guided by slow adjustment rather than sudden change. This long-term leveling process is sometimes described as the gradual settling of the land, where uplift and erosion move toward quiet equilibrium. As high ground is worn down, material is carried into lower areas. Rivers distribute sediments across valleys and plains, smoothing differences in elevation. Wind spreads fine particles across open regions, while ice and water continue their steady shaping. No single force dominates. Instead, the landscape evolves through cooperation among many subtle influences. In mature landscapes, sharp contrasts soften. Slopes become rounded, valleys widen, and elevation differences lessen. Hills may remain, but they rise gently from their surroundings, integrated rather than imposing. These environments often feel calm and spacious, marked by continuity rather than interruption. The land appears settled, having adjusted itself through repeated cycles of change. Soils deepen as weathered rock accumulates and organic material blends in. Plant life spreads steadily, stabilizing the surface and further moderating erosion. Forests, grasslands, or open plains develop according to climate and location, each adapting to the slow rhythm of the terrain beneath. The relationship between land and life becomes balanced and enduring. Human activity, when present, often aligns with these mature landscapes. Travel routes, settlements, and agriculture tend to follow gentle slopes and stable ground. This alignment reflects the same preference for steadiness found in natural processes. Through long-term shaping, the Earth demonstrates patience. Landscapes are not defined by single moments, but by accumulation and adjustment. In this quiet balance, Mountains, valleys, and plains coexist in forms that feel calm, measured, and deeply rooted in time. Across mountains, valleys, and geological formations, the Earth reveals a pattern of steady transformation guided by time rather than urgency. Each landscape, whether high or low, smooth or rugged, reflects countless small adjustments layered gently upon one another. Nothing stands apart from these processes. Stone, water, air, and living growth remain in quiet conversation, shaping the land through repetition and balance. Mountains remind the observer that height is temporary, formed slowly and worn just as patiently. Valleys show how movement creates space, allowing water and sediment to pass through again and again. Plateaus, deserts, coasts, and plains all carry the same message of continuity, where change arrives not as interruption, but as steady progression. The Earth does not rush its own shaping. It allows forms to emerge, soften, and settle naturally. Geological formations serve as records rather than statements. Layers of rock hold traces of ancient seas, shifting climates, and gradual movements beneath the surface. These records remain open and visible, offering quiet insight without demand. They ask only for calm observation and unhurried attention. In resting the mind on these landscapes, a sense of scale emerges. Human time feels brief beside the slow rhythms of stone and water. Yet this contrast brings comfort rather than distance. The land shows that patience is effective, that small forces applied steadily create lasting structure. Nothing needs to happen quickly to be meaningful. As attention settles, the mind may follow the same rhythm found in the earth itself. Breathing slows, thoughts soften. Like the land, the inner landscape can adjust gently, releasing tension through repetition and balance. In this way, mountains and valleys become more than physical forms. They become reminders of calm continuity, guiding rest through the quiet assurance that change unfolds naturally, steadily, and without haste.